Welcome to the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Rosensweet, mom of 3 young people, peaceful parenting coach, and your cheerleader and guide on all things parenting. Each week, we'll cover the tools, strategies, and support you need to end the yelling and power struggles and encourage your kids to listen and cooperate so that you can enjoy your family time. I'm happy to say we have a great relationship with our 3 kids. The teen years have been easy and joyful, not because we're special unicorns, but because my kids were raised with peaceful parenting. I've also helped so many parents just like you stop struggling and enjoy their kids again. I'm excited to be here with you today and bring you the insight and information you need to make your parenting journey a little more peaceful. Let's dive into this week's conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I have a super special guest with me here today. I have my daughter, Maxine, here to talk to us about peaceful parenting. And I know a lot of you are interested in what it's like when you have an older kid who's been raised with peaceful parenting. So here she is. Welcome, Maxine.
Hi, I'm Maxine. Yeah, I was told to introduce myself, but I guess you already did. But I'm 17 and a half, almost 18 next. Well, I guess this year. Keep forgetting
That's
this,
crazy.
2025.
Yeah.
I am in grade 12, and yeah, I'm the youngest of my 2 older brothers, but I don't feel that young.
No, and you're the only one left
anymore.
at home,
Yeah.
which is very sad that they're not here anymore. Okay,
It
well,
is
thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
So maybe I thought it would be fun for you to say what do you think is peaceful parenting?
I don't know if I would know exactly how to explain it, but something that I always think of when I think of peaceful parenting is it's being like more compassionate and like empathetic and sympathetic than not peaceful parenting.
Yeah, that's
And
definitely a big part of it.
it's definitely like part of it is like listening to what your kid needs and not just like what you and your kid needs is definitely part of it. And also peaceful parenting is maybe reteaching parents how to be better parents. If they didn't have peaceful parenting when they were kids, then peaceful parenting can teach them how to do something different than what their parents did when they were kids.
Yeah, that's true for a lot of people, like breaking generational cycles, right?
I was just going to say, I don't know if this exactly makes sense, but peaceful parenting not only helps the kids, but helps the parents. And it not only affects their kids, but it also affects them and helps them be like happier person.
Yeah.
Not even just having to do with parenting, but like in general.
Yeah, I think you must have heard me talk about how some people say that it like helps them in all their relationships. Is that what you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, also when people like email you and say, "Oh, you helped me so much," and stuff like that.
Yeah, I share some of those proud moments with you, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like it's changed how you are as a friend? Like being raised with peaceful parenting, has it affected how you are as a friend?
Just in general, as like a teenager, I can definitely notice that I'm like a lot different than my peers.
In what way?
In a lot of ways. I feel like I'm more, I already use this word, but I'm more compassionate than a lot of people I know. And I am more aware of things. One of my friends, I was at their house the other day and they were babysitting, and I was like watching them with the kid they were babysitting, and they did not know what they were doing. So I was helping them babysit even though I was not initially supposed to. But I was just like, whoa, like some people really don't know how to deal with kids. And then it was like so easy for me. The kid was like immediately was like picking up what I was saying, and he was doing what I asked him to do.
What were you doing differently than your friend?
Well, they were just like yelling at him, and they were arguing and stuff, and I was just like making a clear statement or like point of what needed to happen, and then the kid was just like, oh yeah, okay.
So do you feel like you were being like more respectful or something?
Yeah, and also just more like she was not getting his attention at all. And I was saying things like, okay, like in half an hour we need to get ready for bed, and then he would just be like, okay. And then I was like, okay, like 10 more minutes and then you have to get ready for bed, when she was like, you need to go to bed in 20 minutes. And she was like, the way she was saying it was like making him react differently too.
Like he was feeling more bossed around by her or something, and you were being more like you were being more respectful, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And you've also had a lot of experience with kids in different jobs that you've had with kids. So you probably have had a lot of practice in talking to kids that way.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about one of the jobs that you had where you really noticed a difference about the teacher that was in charge? Because I remember that was quite hard for you because the teacher was doing more like conventional, how you talk to kids. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, I did about, I guess it was like 6 months job in in the daycare kindergarten class. And at first I was like shocked by how the teachers at that school like talk to the children, and it made me at first I was like just thrown off. I was like, oh wow, I've never like been with teachers that like talk to children like this, because I had worked at a different job, and it was like quite like far the opposite of this job. So I was like shocked, and then I started to notice it more, and I was just like, wow, these kids really react differently when I talk to them compared to like when the other teachers talk to them. So I would always try to like talk to them the opposite way of these other teachers. But it just seemed like to me that the teachers just were so like harsh for no reason. And I noticed a lot that like kids really are like way more willing to do what you're asking of them, or like sit quietly on the carpet, for example, if you're like talking to them. I feel like respect is like a good word, but also not fully. But if you talk to a kid in a respectful way, then they will be more willing to acknowledge what you're saying.
Are you talking about kindness too? Like when you said
Yeah.
kindness seems the opposite of harsh to me.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think that's a really big part of it. And I think a lot of people still don't know that. And I think that's one of the big parts of parenting.
Yeah. I remember when you came home one day and you were like super upset because the teacher had said the good kids can go here and the bad kids have to sit against the wall. And you said to me, Mom, some of these kids have only been on the planet for 4 years. And this teacher has like such high expectations of them. But I do note, and I notice that like when we're out and about, and if we see parents who are like not doing peaceful parenting, I see you see that, and I can see that it makes you sad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just people expect a lot of kids who don't know anything, and it just doesn't make sense to me. If someone gets mad at me, I'm like, okay, I can logically understand possibly why they're mad at me, but a 4-year-old can't understand that as well as I can, because they're only like 4, and they're just like, why is this person like speaking loudly at me, and they sound really angry. and I don't know what I did.
Right.
And it's really scary, and now I'm like scared of them.
Yeah, and they're more
It's just
dependent.
like, yeah.
So I also wondered if you could share what you said at the end of that job experience.
Could you refresh
what I'm
my
talking
memory?
about?
I don't remember. I don't know if I remember what you're talking about.
Well, just that you saw a change in the teacher.
Yeah, I did a little bit. I think I like offended the teacher at first in that job because I was like, it was really frustrating to work with them. And so I possibly might have been a little bit like accidentally condescending or something to the
Really? Like
teacher.
how?
Well, like the teacher would see that the kids would like want to come to me if they were like upset or something, and then they would like be okay when I would talk to them, but then they would just be worse when the teacher would talk to them. She was like, "No, don't stop crying," blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think maybe the teacher just saw like how the kids reacted when I talked to them, and they were like, "Oh, maybe I should try doing this."
That's so cool, though.
In the beginning of my job, they would write names on the board for like bad kids,
Mhm.
and the kids would basically get like a timeout when we would go outside at recess. And like towards the end of the year, the teacher didn't do that like as often as they did when I
Good.
first started my job.
Yes, you and I talked about this a lot because you were like in a power imbalance, so you couldn't really say anything to
Yeah.
the teacher, nor would it have been appropriate since you were
Mhm.
not the boss and you're so much younger. However, just by example of how you were with the kids, it sounds like you made an impression on this teacher. And also,
Mhm.
you did tell me, I don't know if you forgot because it was like a year ago, but you told me that you thought that they yelled less
Mhm.
towards the end, which is great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've been talking a lot about treatment of children, which is definitely a huge part of peaceful parenting. When you said before that you saw a difference between you and your peers, that in terms of being more empathetic, do you see any other differences? Like one thing that I always tell parents is that if you do this, you'll have a better relationship with your kids when they get older. Do you see that with your friends? It's okay if you don't see a difference, but I'm curious if you do see a difference.
I think I do see a difference, like actually quite a big difference. I think people are always like shocked at how close I am with my parents and my siblings too. People are always like, "Oh wow, like you and your brothers don't ever like fight or argue." And I'm like, "No, not really." Like my brothers are 20 and 23, and even as we were like when we were little kids, we didn't really ever argue like seriously.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
argued like kids, but there was never anything like big or crazy,
Mhm.
which does happen with some siblings. And like a lot of my friends are not really close with their parents, and whenever they come over, I feel like it seems to them like unusual.
Sometimes I get the
And
impression that your friends want to hang out with us.
yes, I think so. A lot of my friends always say, "Wow, your parents are so cool," or "Your parents are so like they're so nice," or one of my friends, he listens to your podcast during my winter concert. He was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to meet the famous Sarah Rosensweet." He was like so excited to meet you. It was hilarious. He was like listening to your podcast like during school. And then a few days later, he was like, "Oh my gosh, I get to meet your mom today." And he was like so excited.
So funny. It's so funny. One of Ace's friends, also Spencer, said he listens to the podcast like a
Yeah.
couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So I also, when you're going back to what you're saying about brothers, when I was giving your boyfriend and his friend and you a ride the other day, your boyfriend was telling his friend, Maxine gets along so well with her brothers. It's so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's nice. I mean, maybe it is peaceful parenting, but also you guys are just awesome. So
I think
it's nice.
I think it is partly because of how we were raised. You and Dad always had us doing things together. We always did family things, and so it eventually now it like created us to want to hang out with each other.
That's nice. Do anything you want parents to know about peaceful parenting? Did any differences, like looking back on your childhood that you saw, or things that stood out to you about like you and your friends and their parents, or things now?
I don't know if this makes sense, but like maybe peaceful parenting creates like more well-rounded kids
Mm-hmm.
and rounded people. 'Cause,
That.
like, not to throw any of my peers under the bus or anything like that, but I know a lot more about how things work, and I can be much more like self-sufficient. And I don't know if that's because of peaceful parenting or because of where I grew up, or I don't know. But I think partially it is because of how I was parented as a kid. Like, same with my older brothers. We're all very like independent. I was saying this to someone the other day, even though I don't want to. I think I could move out right now and I would be able to live on my own because of how independent I am. And I could not say that for a lot of my other friends.
So cool. Yeah. You've been taking public transit by yourself since you were in grade 7.
Yeah.
And I remember when you got to high school, even through the middle of high school, you had friends who didn't know how to get around on their own, and their parents just had to give them rides places. I remember once you went over to a friend's house and got them so that you could show them how to use the subway so they could come over to your house.
Yeah.
Yeah, you for sure are really independent. And the other thing that stands out to me is that you and brothers are really helpful. Do you think that, I mean, I don't live with any other teenagers. Do you think other teenagers do as much around the house as you do?
I don't think so. I think, I don't know. I think also maybe a lot of parents have lower standards for their children than you and Papa do, which like creates the kids to not do anything and be more lazy.
Like what?
Like a lot of parents, if their kids just say, I don't want to do this, then they're just like, okay, I won't make you do it. But
Mhm.
like, you and Papa didn't make us do stuff, but you would highly recommend that we do it because you were like, I think this would be really good for you, and I think you should do this. But you wouldn't force us. But a lot of parents, if their kids say one time that they didn't want to do it, then they would just be like, okay, you don't have to. But
Huh.
yeah.
Okay, cool. What do you think you're going to raise your kids with peaceful parenting?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think now how I am, it would be hard not to. I think once you like are parented with peaceful parenting, it's hard to go back to conventional parenting. And once you know about it, then peaceful parenting is the only thing that like makes sense to you.
What is conventional parenting to you?
Like yelling at your kids and like timeouts and
Mhm.
punishments and like everything the parent says, and you have to listen to everything they say, and parents are the only ones who are ever right and all that.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I think of it too.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
So on Instagram and stuff, I see something called gentle parenting. Is that the same thing as peaceful parenting, or are those things different? Because I've seen videos of gentle parenting, and that to me seems like only the kid is like in charge of the parent. But I don't know if that's like peaceful parenting. Peaceful parenting is like the kid and the grown up working together, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love that you. I love that you
know.
I love that you like zeroed in on that. Okay, so I
Do you
think
know about what that is?
yeah. So I think real, actual gentle parenting is the same as peaceful parenting,
Mhm.
but I think a lot of people have gotten confused. Yeah. What I think that there's like a misconception about gentle parenting. I think that real gentle parenting, like my friend Vivek, who you've heard me talk about, but he talks about gentle parenting. And I think his idea of gentle parenting and my idea of peaceful parenting are the same. But I think that some people think that gentle parenting is just like letting your kids like do whatever they want, basically, and that you don't guide them at all. So basically, conventional parenting is that like the parents' needs and preferences are the most important thing, right? Be quiet, don't make a mess, do what I say. Like the parents are like the most important thing, right? And I think people think that gentle parenting or peaceful parenting means now the kid's the most important thing and you can never say no to your kid and you always have to do everything that they want and you put your own needs aside. And that's not right either. And it's exactly what you said, is that it's what it actually is parents and kids working together. Do you have any words of wisdom for the parents who are listening?
What do you mean?
Like from a kid perspective, I don't know.
This is like kind of random, but I would say from a kid's perspective, don't make your kids feel like they can't talk to you about anything. Because I definitely, like, I always tell you everything because I, like, know that you won't, like, ever get, like, mad or you won't, like, judge me for something that I say. But definitely a lot of people, like, could not say the same. A lot of my friends, when I, like, tell them if I, like, told you something about what's going on in my life, they're like, what, you told your mom that? That's so weird. And I'm like, what? Not really that weird. You were the first person I told about my boyfriend, even before my friends and stuff. And a lot of people would just like keep that hidden from their parents. So I would say make it known to your kids that you're open to talk about anything and they can tell you anything and they will never be judged or anything like that.
I love that. And I think a big part of it is knowing that you're like, maybe I wouldn't be like happy about everything you tell me, or when you were growing up, there may be things I'm not like, happy about, but you would never be in trouble. I would never, as you said, judge you. So I think that starts from when people have little kids, that building up that trust, right?
Yeah. Well, this is like random, but just like about like, I would never be in trouble for anything. Like, remember when we were in Vermont or Seattle and I stole those little gems from that store?
Yeah.
And I told you eventually because I knew that you wouldn't be mad at me. But even with that, I was like a little bit scared, but I was like, I remember telling myself, I was like, it's okay. She might be a little bit upset that you stole these, but she won't get mad at you. You won't be in trouble. And so I think that is really important. And that leads to when your kids are teenagers. And if you want them to tell you stuff, then you have to start like setting that up when they're little kids.
Totally. And just that, and I think you were around 6 and we were at a garden store and they had those little glass balls that people put in their gardens. And we got in the car and half an hour later, you like showed me in your hand that you had 4 or 5 of these little glass balls. And I think we said we were going to send them back. And due to my lack of organization, I don't believe I ever sent them back. And I'm sorry to the Seattle garden store that we never sent back those little jewels. But yeah, that's exactly what I talk to parents about. And Corey, one time when her son did something that he shouldn't have done and he told her about it, I think he was probably like 6, like around the same time. And she said, well, what are we going to do to solve this problem? And apparently he told his friend what he had done. And his friend's, oh, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get in trouble. And he said to his friend, I'm not going to get in trouble. My mommy always helps me solve the problem. And so when Corey said to him, what are we going to do to solve this problem? He's, I told so-and-so that's what you were going to say, that you were going to say, I'm going to help you solve the problem. Isn't that sweet? I know. He's, my mommy doesn't get me in trouble. She helps me solve problems, which I thought was really cute.
That is cute.
Yeah. one thing I was going to ask you about, I'm sure that you have friends or people that you know who like get grounded or get their phones taken away or things like that. Do you think that helps them to do better, or what do you think parents should do when their kids are doing the wrong thing?
Well, not anymore, but definitely when I was younger, I had a lot of my friends would get grounded and stuff. I never got grounded, and I'm sure you talk to people about that, but I honestly don't think that does anything.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being completely honest, I like I think the reason why a lot of people think that works is because my kid's gonna sit here and they'll think about what they did was wrong, and this will give them time to think about what was wrong about this. But really, this is gonna sound harsh, but like from talking to people who get grounded, it really just makes them it sounds really harsh, and I'm sorry, but it really makes them hate their parents more, and it makes them go in more to themselves and be like, oh, I'm never gonna tell them anything because then I'll just get grounded again.
Right.
If you ground your kids, then it's just you're letting them stew in their anger, and they'll they will rebel against you even more and stuff.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, I mean, that's what we teach parents. What do you think about the fact that we limited your screen time?
I think it was good. I think definitely was frustrating when I was younger, but I think it was good because when I didn't have screen time, I would do painting or stuff like that, and I would try to find other things to do. And I think if I had just stayed on screen time, I don't know where I would be now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I have ADHD, and I don't know what extra screen time would have done to my brain.
Yeah. I mean, because I think
And
it was good that we did.
Even now, I think I still sometimes do too much screen.
Yeah.
But I really try to not. But sometimes I do still. But I just always think if I just did this every day when I was younger, then maybe I would I don't know, not be doing well right now or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and just for people who haven't heard me say this, until you were 16, you had a 2-hour limit on your phone, where we had
I think it was 1 hour and a half or something.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, an hour and a half limit on your phone.
Yeah.
And then when you turned 16, we took it off, and now I just nag you.
Yeah. And
Now I just say, get off your phone.
I'd say this vacation is not doing me justice of this, but I do try to not go on my phone. I honestly was so wiped out from school that I'm just I don't even care. I'm just going to do as much phone as I want to just give myself a break, because I was working very hard at school up until the last day of the
We're recording this while Maxine's still on her
winter
Christmas
break.
Yeah, winter break.
Yeah. But so I'm just going full screen, and I don't even care. And then because when I go back to school, I have to oh my gosh, I sound like a Gen Alpha, but when I say this, I have to lock in.
That's really funny. Okay, last question. This is a spin on the question that I ask other guests. So I usually ask other guests, if you go back in a time machine to your younger parent self, what advice would you give yourself? But since you don't have kids, I'm going to ask you, if you could go in a time machine to your future parent self, to when you have kids, what advice would you want yourself to not forget about being a kid that you want your grown-up parent self to remember?
That your kid is trying their best. Just like you're trying your best, so you have to work together. Because everyone's just trying their best.
Aw. Thanks, Maxine. Okay, love you, kid.
I love you, too. I'll see you in 1 minute.
I'll see you in 1 minute in the hallway. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. And thanks especially to my favorite all-time guest, Maxine Rosensweet. And share this episode with a friend if you know somebody who needs some inspiration around raising kids with peaceful parenting, because it can be really tough when they're little and as they're growing, especially if you have intense kids. And take heart, because if you stick with it, you'll probably end up with an awesome kid like Maxine, who I'm just grateful for every day. I love you so much.
Thanks, Mom. Shucks.
Ah, shucks. Bye. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and exactly what you needed in this moment. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Remember that I'm rooting for you. I see you out there showing up for your kids and doing the best you can. Sending hugs over the airwaves today. Hang in there. You've got this.